Thank you for listening to the Old English D podcast. New episodes are live every Tuesday, so make sure to subscribe and follow to keep up to date on all the new episodes. And as we always say, go Tigers.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Casey, as always joined by Josh, my friend, my pal. How you doing this evening? We are in the midst of a KC, Kansas City swatting at this point. We're getting kind of demolished by the Royals at this very moment. The game hasn't finished. The game's not over, so we may come back. But how you doing this fine evening? How was your weekend?
Long weekend.
Long weekend. Those are never fun.
A long weekend is a good time, but a weekend that is long is not.
Right. I interpreted it as a bad. It's a bad thing. I don't know if you meant that.
I don't know that I would even categorize it as a bad weekend necessarily. Just was busy, I guess I should
Gotcha.
say.
Okay.
Did a lot of wood splitting on Saturday.
Oh. What was the occasion?
My dad needed some help with some wood that he brought back from my great aunt's property, and it's been sitting there a while, and I was like, yeah, may as well do that with him today. So did that for about 3 hours on Saturday. So that was pleasant. Could not stand up on Sunday though. That was
The fallout was quite bad.
Yeah, didn't really anticipate it being quite so rough, but here we are.
As it goes. Well, any manual labor, that's typically how it goes.
I'm reminded more often than not these days that I have a desk job instead of a more physical job of carrying ladders and climbing roofs. So
that's fair. Probably your good reason, I'm assuming.
Depends on the day. Saturday, I wish I was still climbing roofs because that would have helped me out quite a bit.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yes. So Tigers won the Diamondback series, so that was very nice to see. We had a little bit of an offensive eruption, so that was very good to see. Don't know what it is about the desert that I don't know why Javi Baez enjoys hitting in the desert and not at Comerica Park or really anywhere else, judging by the Kansas City series, how it's starting out. So that was fun to watch. And we have some Kenta updates, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming games that are coming up, because this is the Old English D at Detroit Tigers podcast, where you can listen to all of your Tiger takes. The energy is a little low this evening because we knew this Kansas City series would start off just terribly. So we'll see how the rest of the series goes. But hey, it at this point, the Kansas City Royals are super good. The Cleveland Guardians are super good. They're proving, the Tigers are proving that the statement about April is also true about May, that you can't win a division in April, but you certainly can lose it. And apparently you certainly can't win a division in May, but you can certainly lose it. So this was supposed to be a pretty easy month for us, and it's proving not to be. So, as it typically goes. So, as of this very moment, the Tigers are 500. They will probably be 23-24 by the time this game is over, which would put them 7.5 games back on the AL Central. So, let's not talk too much about the game tonight, because outside of a Joey Wentz bad performance, pretty average baseball game. It was going to be a close baseball game. Reese Olson got hurt. Bo Brisky came in, looked great, did his thing. I think Bo honestly is kind of earning his keep and may be able to hang out for a little bit, especially if Shelby Miller stays down for as long as it's seeming to take. So Joey kind of went back to old Joey of last year, left some pitches over the plate and kind of made this game a little bit out of question. So Kerry Carpenter, love you, man. You look great. Colt Keith finally starting to show up. And again, if this offense just just found a way to score runs for Reese Olson. Maybe, he wouldn't have an 0-5 record, but I digress. Here we are. But the D-back series, wasn't too terrible to watch. And of course, we recorded, the day before the off day, so we released on the off day. So it's really the only series we have to talk about. And I think I'll let you go first. I'm taking a look at your takeaways from the D-back series, and I think it's a good tee up for the rest of it. So what's some things you see about the D-back series that you liked?
Not to start off on a negative trajectory here, but just something I've noticed, especially against the Diamondbacks, but it's seeming to be a trend so far this year. Riley Green has had a pretty good start to the year, all things considered. A lot of his advanced metrics are very positive, and he's cooled off recently, but he did have quite a hot April for him. But one thing I did notice in that Diamondbacks series, particularly against the lefties, was he is struggling against off-speed pitches and thrown by lefties. And it made me curious. So I went up and looked at Baseball Savant. They have a really nice way to just split out team splits per year. And so I pulled up Riley's, and it is as I thought. He is struggling this year against lefties. Now, I went back to his 3 years of his career, and we want to make sure we're getting a good sample size and comparing it apples to apples. But his numbers against lefties this year are stark. He's currently hitting 186 against lefties as compared to 268 against righties. His on-base percentage is 255 as opposed to 386 against righties. And his slugging percentage against lefties is 372, whereas his slugging percentage against righties is 496. And it's showing up in the more basic categories as well. Only 8 hits all year against lefties in 43 at-bats. He has 2 homers, which is something, but 4 walks to 13 strikeouts. So he's definitely struggling against lefties. He's got about a third of the at-bats against lefties that he does against righties. So there is a bit of a sample size skew, but these are still some big gaps in his game. And the reason why I think it's pertinent for him, because you'll still see this quite a bit in Major League Baseball where lefties dominate lefties. There are obviously the outliers, but going back the last 2 years of his career with, almost a full season last year and, a good 500 plate appearance, almost 500 plate appearances in 2022. The numbers do not play out that way. Last year, his average was only 20 points lower against lefties than against righties. Same for his on-base percentage. Quite a bigger dip in slugging last year. He did not have a home run off of a lefty last year, oddly enough. But his OPS was still at a 693, which is completely serviceable. So that was interesting, but also his 2022 was incredible to me. Now that I go back and look at the stats, even in limited action, he still had over 100 plate appearances against both lefties and righties. Against lefties, he hit 303 in 2022, as opposed to righties, which he hit 232, which is absolutely insane to me. Again, this year was the first year where he has any home runs against lefties. So I think that's probably a little bit of a pickup career-wise for him, which is eye-opening, I guess you would say. But just to look back and say he's really struggling, especially against the off-speed. Montgomery really had him in knots that whole game on Sunday, and even some of the other lefties also really made him look bad. So do you think that this is a long-term trend we're starting to see here, or is this just kind of a blip in the radar and he'll start to hit lefties better like he always has?
I think, and I don't know if it's correlation or causation, but this is just my bird's eye view of it. I think Riley, and his trend of trying to hit the ball in the air is causing a lot of issues all around in his game. I think overall he obviously is a better power hitter, a little bit more slugging all around. Obviously has the 2 home runs against lefties this year that he did not get last year, like you highlighted. But I think as far as becoming an overall better hitter, this is turned into the wrong direction. And this is something I was fearful of at the beginning of the year, and as soon as I kind of saw some of his swings, it's actually interesting. I meant to highlight this last week when I talked about going to the Tigers game. I got to watch his pre-pitch routine and his on-deck routine about 3 or 4 times when I was at the game. I hate it. I hate every part of it. And I know exactly what he's trying to do. I get it. He literally will completely alter his swing to lift the ball. So he is trying to he is dropping his shoulder and doing everything he can to lift the ball. I wish I could demonstrate exactly what he's doing. But he is literally swinging up to the sky. If you can imagine, he's taking his bat head and swinging up to the sky. And then he'll kind of settle in his last 3 or 4 swings when he's on deck, and then kind of go into it. It perfectly explains this whole regression with lefties as a whole, because if you can't foul off and make some kind of emergency contact lefty on lefty, there really is not a lot of not many people are Yordan Alvarez or Shohei Ohtani for that matter, right? It's tough to make contact against lefties when you're a lefty, and so to stay in the at bat, to get up on the plate and kind of allow soft contact to the other way is really a way to dominate left-handed pitching, and he doesn't settle for any of that anymore. He will take the base hit, but he does not. That's not what he's going for. When it's not what you're driving toward, when it's not what you're going for, it's not going to happen a lot. And so I can't prove causation here. I don't think anyone really would be able to, but I don't love the trajectory of Riley Green as a whole at the moment, and I think I think him with runners on is a question mark at this point too. I think he's actually settled too well into the leadoff role when he kind of had to take Parker's spot. So I think Riley will come around. I think it'll be okay, but he's definitely has the bringer of rain Josh Donaldson syndrome at the moment. And it worked for Josh Donaldson for 3 years, and it got him a really big contract, but then it kind of got him out of baseball pretty quickly. So I like what I like some of the swings when he obviously is lifting the ball. We saw some great swings in Arizona, like with a lot of the offense as a whole, but the trend is somewhat concerning to me. What about you?
It definitely is, and your point about his on deck preparation is interesting to me. That's really got to make it difficult overall for him to stay consistent with his swing. He's had some really good swings that I've seen this year on pitches away from him. A few against lefties, not as many, where he's kind of filleted the ball off into left field. But yeah, it's just down to the interpretation of what different people think that Riley Green can bring, and what we think that his what's the word I'm looking for? His top talent in baseball will be, and what his ceiling would what his ceiling would bring. Whether you think he's a power hitter or more of a balanced hitter who can hit for some power, but also can put the ball in play and get on base. I do think you have a very interesting point about the leadoff spot as well, because when you're hitting him leadoff, I think your mindset is just so different. I would really love to see Hinch bat Wentzell leadoff.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I know he's hitting for power more than Riley is right now, but I think that's probably somewhat due to the place where he's hitting in the lineup. I think they're trying to do different things. Wentz is just putting the bat on the ball so well, and he's such a weapon on the base paths. I just feel like even just swapping them 1 for 3 there would be a really interesting way to shake up the lineup. And maybe they don't feel like they need it at this point, with the offense being, uh, you know, good to okay the last, weekish. I guess week is go back into the Miami series. So I
Three
guess I
games.
shouldn't say
Three
that,
games.
but yeah. But I don't know. It feel like he's trying to do too much to his swing to make a difference like this, and I don't think that's where he should be living. But clearly, the Tigers don't have a problem with what he's trying to do, um, and clearly he's doing what they're telling him to do. So who knows? I also think, like you do, that it'll come around. It'll balance out a little bit throughout the year. But man, you just like to see Riley Green, who sprays the ball all over, gets on base, and makes it an issue, because that's at the end of the day what a leadoff hitter needs to do, and that's where
We
they're
don't
hitting him.
we don't really need the power either. I mean, not to be like whatever, but if Torque starts hitting home runs, Kerry Carpenter hits home runs, right? If, I would much rather see a guy that can get on base and is a little bit more scrappy. I appreciate the power. I like the power. I don't think that it really is needed so much. Especially when, yeah, I mean, if Torque and Kerry can keep on hitting home runs, it's not as needed.
Right. This brings me to probably a monthly conversation that we have seemingly every year about AJ Hinch in the bullpen. We kind of hinted on it at, I think it was last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago. But just every once in a while, every single year, we have the very odd head scratching AJ Hinch bullpen situation. And it's really puzzling to me. And this is really highlighted by Andrew Chafin right now for me. And I forget exactly what the scenario was, because I think a lot more happened in the game after this on Sunday. But there was a moment when Andrew Chafin was warming up in the bullpen in a very key situation, and I was on my couch at home yelling, "Please, AJ, don't put Chafin in this game." And so I thought that was interesting, because ever since I was singing his praises as a guy who could get saves out of this bullpen, he's really struggled. And I kind of dug into a little bit of why that would be the case. This year, he has not thrown a single changeup. So that kind of eliminates one of the weapons he can have against righties. Now, he didn't throw it a ton last year either. So it's not really a whole lot, but it's still just a different look for right-handed hitters to have. And his usage of his slider has jumped exponentially as well. That's probably due to the fact that his sinker is getting hit hard 40% of the time right now, which is not ideal for a reliever. That's quite the jump there. But when your sinker is getting hit hard all of those times, it really eliminates any other weapon besides the slider. And when guys can either sit on the slider and put it in play hard, or they can just lay off it and wait for you to throw that sinker, it really eliminates a lot of your ability to maneuver around against lefties or righties, especially against righties. But clearly we've seen lefties have great success off of him as well recently. So, and AJ, going back to the main point, AJ has really seemed bullish on using Chafin in these big situations. And even just, the thought of him in big situations, clearly against the Diamondbacks, he was thinking about putting him into the game. He wouldn't have had him getting up and warming up in that situation. I know AJ and the pitching staff, they have all the numbers. They have all of these things that they use to determine who they're going to use in situations, rest, abilities against different handed batters, against different specific types of batters. But just, I don't understand. There seems to be this very odd loyalty to Andrew Chafin when he's clearly struggling and clearly only has one reliable pitch over his entire 2024 season. I don't know. Am I reading too much into this? Is this just a blip in the radar, or is there a conspiracy here?
No, you're not. I don't think your analysis of Chafin is too far off. I think a lot of it goes into his slider usage. I think that pitch is really, really good when he can land it for strikes. And then he can also, obviously bury it to back foot to the righties. I think he's having trouble with the command of that pitch at the moment, and so that just makes the rest of his repertoire, his four seamer that he throws, not very often, but then really his sinker, just that much more hittable. Because if you have to throw it for strikes, obviously it's going to get hit around it, 92 and not very well located. So I don't think your analysis is too far off. I never knew he really even had a changeup as part of his repertoire. I'm sure he threw it like 2 or 3% of the time or whatever. But yeah, maybe something just to throw off more hitters. But it all goes back to the slider for him, and when it's not working, it's just not. He's not an effective pitcher. I love him. I love his personality. I love what he brings to the team. I don't think that he's really earned the high leverage spots, so I don't think that you're going to really see him too much in there. But at the same time, it's like, well, you're a lefty, and lefties are super valuable late in the game. It's going back to that Wensiel conversation. It's the reason that Wensiel still continues to hit in the order when he does, because he's a switch hitter, and it makes the other opposing dugout have to think, and the manager have to think about when they're going to bring in their lefty arms versus their righty bullpen arms. And it's the same thing with other, with opposing lineups where, if there's a clear lefty in that situation, Hinch loves playing that game. And I've said this before, but I don't always think that that's the right game to play. But Hinch kind of lives and dies by it. And most of the time it works out for him. I just think that Tyler Holton's a way more effective option. And before tonight, Joey Wentz was a way more effective option too. So I think Chafin's kind of maybe fallen down in the rings of the ladder, the rungs of the ladder. But the problem is the way the bullpen's built out. You kind of need him to be a little bit more in high leverage situations. So I think Hinch likes what he brings to the table when he throws strikes, kind of like Lang. But unfortunately, and when it's bad, it's not very good. So. In the midst of the Chafin conversation, the Tigers did lose 3-8, so they are officially below 500 again. The Royals have won 30 games in less than 50 tries. The Guardians have won 31 games in less than 50 tries. I think it's just time to accept they're good baseball teams. I think they're just. Legit. They are among the best baseball teams in all of the MLB. So they've proven it to the best and the worst teams. That they're gonna be neck and neck for the rest of the year for the Central. So yeah, I hope we can salvage at least something out of this series. But the way that they're hitting and kind of the way that Waka pitched great tonight. So they're a complete baseball team. So kudos to them. They are turning around. This is going to be a historic run. They lost over 100 games last year. They're not going to lose 100 games this year. So, yeah, they found the secret sauce. The Reese Olson confounding situation continues. He's now 0-5 with a 2.16 ERA. He's in the top 10 of Major League Baseball with ERA, and he has 0 wins this year. So it continues to be a very, very frustrating year for the Detroit Tigers, because we know we can be really, really good if we could hit a little bit. But a lot of bad things going our way currently. So some of the things I saw in the D-back series, obviously we began to hit the ball a little bit better. A lot of that had to do with the conditions. Obviously, it's indoor ballpark. For some reason, as I mentioned, Javier Baez has an amazing career average and at Chase Field. So he just, he actually awakened for the first series and got his average above 200, above the Mendoza line. But I think it goes beyond that. I think the offense as a whole, we didn't hit a lot of home runs. We just simply took what was given to us at the plate. If the pitch was thrown outside, we took the pitch the other way, the opposite way in the field. If it was inside, we pulled it, and we actually had some power and some gap power, and we showed that patience and both aggressiveness and patience can pay off. Where, there were some at bats where we were really, really aggressive on pitches that we knew that we could drive. And then some at bats where runners were on base and we actually took advantage of it. We let the bat play out and let the pitcher have some anxiety and actually were able to get some hits out of it. The other thing is too, not just our 2-strike mentality, but also our 2-out mentality. We had a lot of runs scored with 2 outs in the field, and that is a godsend to offense. It really just keeps everything going around. I think in the second game, we scored 6 runs with 2 outs, and we had like no one on base for most of the inning until we got 2 outs. So it was good to see some offensive eruption, but again, it's like, okay, why can you do it at this current moment? Why can you have a good approach in this series and then walk into Kansas City and just get absolutely shellacked by Michael Wacha? It's super confusing. I don't know exactly what role the pitcher plays, the opposing pitcher plays versus just our inconsistent approach. But sometimes you gotta tip your cap. I don't know if tonight was one of those nights, but the Arizona series, we could have swept that series easily, and it was good to see some offense that we had been sorely missing. So, what are a couple of swings that you liked in the Arizona series?
As a baseball fan that has to endure 81 games of Comerica Park a year, I am currently livid at the design of Chase Field's center field wall. Kerry Carpenter hit a ball 422 feet to dead center, and it was
we'll get there.
a triple. But it was a really good swing, as I think where I was originally going with that line of thinking is he put a really good swing on the ball, and that really goes to prove something, at least in my head, is that again, this team doesn't give up. And that game, we were down 3-0, and then 4-1 at one point, and we came back to tie that game at 4 late, even after a semi-rough outing from Matt Manning, where he clearly did not have his stuff. That was really good to see for me. The team just still have a fight and still play semi-well, hit semi-well in a game where it clearly did not go their way early. So, and I think that's something that they've struggled with a lot is in games where they've gone down early, kind of looking like they're giving up, especially in the middle innings, and that wasn't the case. And to their credit, also, I think during this game, they were missing the big hit in a couple innings, but they didn't lay down and just give up. I don't know what the deal is with Wacha, but I think this is his second start this year where he's really kind of confounded the Tigers. I don't know I think the approach was a lot better tonight, fortunately, but I don't know,
It's that
man.
changeup. It's Bugs Bunny. They can't do anything against it. I had gone to the game. I'm like, all right, well, here's the continuation of Colt Keith struggling after not having a great Sunday game in Arizona, and then sure enough, he ends up 3 for 4. But yeah, it's just that off-speed pitch. I mean, it's disgusting. And then he was landing in some swing back sinkers on the inside of the plate. Like he's a complete pitcher again. He went to the Padres for a year and kind of reshaped himself. I know obviously you're familiar with him from his Cardinal days. He's a completely different guy than what he was. So, how about that 13-0 game, dude? Like, I talk about giving run to support to a pitcher that just doesn't need it, but we'll take it. But Skubal gets 13 runs of support. They have to pull him after the 6th inning. I think he only had like 70 pitches. They're like, whatever. They pulled Riley. Like it was like a softball game at one point, like a slow pitch softball game. Like this is the Tigers, and so yeah, that was awesome to see. The game following, obviously, when we put together some runs, and even Sunday when we were coming back a little bit, that was really cool to see. You mentioned the Kerry Carpenter triple that should have been an inside the park home run. First off, I want to get your opinion. Do you think he should have been sent?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Alex Cora has been the talk of Tigers Twitter to some people's discouragement. I think I would say at this point I like 85 to 90% of his sends. He's an aggressive sender anyways. So we kind of knew what he was getting into, and this is someone that AJ's wanted to hire for a long time apparently. So AJ's always going to back his guys. I think while he's sometimes overly aggressive, typically there is reasoning behind it, and I think specifically with Kerry Carpenter inside the park home run, there were plenty of reasons to send him. They bobbled the ball. Well, first off, it hit off the wall, high off the wall. Took a long time for a fielder to go retrieve the ball. Then when they go to pick it up, he bobbles it a little bit, couldn't get it out of his glove, and then the cutoff man kind of did like a stutter step to home plate. So there were plenty of reasons why sending him was the right choice. Now, point of consternation that I have, I understand he was tagged on the shoulder. I think he was out. I love the slide from Carey. Maybe you could have been a little bit too early on the slide. What is a lane? What is a lane then? If this is a rule that Major League Baseball really wants to enforce, someone needs to explain this to me like I'm a third grader. Because I didn't see a lane. I don't know what a lane is or when a lane appears to be a lane and how long it has to be a lane for. Because when a catcher is diving over the plate and has possession of the ball, and I would say more than 85% of the plate is taken up by the catcher, isn't that blocking? Like, isn't that completely putting a stone wall up in front of the runner? How big does the lane have to be? Where's the lane? When is the lane? Help me figure it out, Josh. What are we looking at here?
So I have pulled up the new the I guess updated base blocking rule, and this is from an article written on February 14th of this year. So this is beginning of spring training. The new, every league does this, and I think it's really weird how they pick one rule to kind of pick on all year for umpires to be especially looking for. The NFL does it, the NBA does it. I don't know about hockey specifically, but it's just really weird to me. It says here, and this is by Anthony Castrovance. In an effort to target egregious blocking of bases by defenders, Major League Baseball has provided guidance to its umpires on an existing rule that targets obstruction of the runner's path. Existing Rule 6.00H awards the base to the runner when the fielder is ruled to have impeded the runner's progress while not in possession of the ball and not in the act of fielding the ball. The rule leaves it up to the judgment of the umpire as whether a fielder is in the act of fielding the ball. I don't.
So that
goes
makes
down
it sound
here
to me.
further, and
Can he block the plate when he has possession of the ball? That's what that sounds
it goes
like
down
to me.
here. It goes on here further and says the play remains non-reviewable, and the point of emphasis only applies to the bases, not to home plate, which has its own rule regarding when and whether catchers can block the paths of runners.
Right.
So
that's the one at second base. That's the one where they can't put the leg in front of. But I want to know the home plate. Like what is a lane? Do we have that information? I don't want to put you on the spot totally, but while you're in the rule book,
Anthony or his editors were gracious enough to include a link to this as well.
Here we go.
Let's see here. By rule, the base runner is not allowed to deviate from his direct path to initiate contact with the catcher or any player covering the plate. Runners are considered to be in violation of this rule if they collide with the catcher in cases where a slide could have been used to avoid a collision. And so that's the runner's end of things. The catcher is not permitted to block the runner's path to the plate unless he is in possession of the ball. The runner can be ruled safe if the umpire determines the catcher violated this rule.
Yeah, so it's literally they have possession of the ball, they can block play. That's so interesting that the rule is based on the guy without the protection hurting the guy with the protection. That seems so backwards to me. You're going to tell me, like, I get it, you can drop a shoulder, and I understand that that can hurt, but you're going to sit there and tell me that the runner is responsible for most of the collisions at home plate? I don't know. At
I
best, I
think
think it's
there's a
50-50.
yeah. No, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think it is a little more. The onus is on both of them at that point. I think the reasoning behind there being a little more, uh, fault, quote unquote, on the runner is that the runner has the momentum and the speed. And
Yeah.
you go to any driver's training, and they'll tell you in any car accident, the vehicle with the more mass and the more speed is going to win. And so
Mhm.
I think that's part of it. I still I still think that it was Tucker, correct? I'm
Uh,
remembering that correctly. Tucker Barnhart,
at
who
the
was the catcher.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I was thinking Tucker, um, uh, Kyle Tucker from the Astros. I'm like, oh, what? No, but yeah, no, you're
Uh,
exactly right. Tucker Barnhart.
his foot was on the base before receiving the ball, and I think that's really the leg that the Tigers would have to stand on in that scenario. Now, what do you count that as blocking the play? I mean, that's probably a thin leg to stand on. You, as a Tigers fan, though, you just really want that run to score, and you really want that to be called. The more I saw it and the more I thought about it, the less frustrated I got, because at the end of the day, you're trying to turn it into an inside the park home run. It was close, and the throw was there. I mean, the throw was on time, whether or not he got the tag down, whether or not the catcher was blocking the plate. So at that point, you're putting the decision, the outcome in the hands of the umpire. So, and the umpire gets a judgment call in that scenario, and he judged that there was nothing going on. And New York also looked at it and said that there was no interference or blocking the plate. So, I mean, you really there's not a whole ton to stand on, in my opinion, unfortunately.
Should have been a home run anyways. What the
Facts.
heck is the skyscraper doing out there? Like what is happening? I really don't understand why that center field also not only has to be 413 farther than Comerica Park, also has to be 50 feet in the air. Like, okay, what are we doing here? So yeah, I don't know. I think that run was extremely meaningful. But also when we tied the game, it would be helpful if we didn't just give the ball game right back to the Diamondbacks. So,
Right.
thank you, bullpen. Back to your bullpen story. So, and then the last thing I want to bring up, which was just the hilarity of the situation, the Jack Flaherty versus Gallen situation, Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks. That was some of the most awesome television I've seen in years. I think they could make a whole reality TV series and documentary on that whole situation, because that was fantastic. Credit to Tony Lavello. I did see a comment today. He had a lot of
Totally.
nice things to say about the Tigers. There was a lot of I was pretty in the moment too. I got kind of mad at Tony with the whole jawing back at Jack Flaherty. I'm sure Flaherty deserved it. Let's be honest here, but I was of course pro Tigers and all of that, and I think you were too. I don't want to speak for you, but Tony Lavello did have very nice things to say about the team. He said that we're gritty. He said that we don't give up. So credit where credit's due. Appreciate you. Thank you. You're struggling too as the Diamondbacks coach. So can only imagine. Talk about inconsistent baseball, but every single inning, having the Bally Sports broadcast come back to the grounds crew patting down the mound, and Zach Gallen just watched them like he's directing his servants around, was the most hilarious thing I've seen. I cannot believe, like, I get it. I understand it's your homebound. You want there to be consistency. You want it to be comfortable for yourself, whatever. But like, how big of a trench was Jack really digging? I mean, like come on. And also, like, don't you have an advantage when you're a pitcher and you can push off like that and like be able to really get some force behind the pitch? But no, you want it as flat as possible. Like, the pitchers are divas as it is, but it was, and then to see Jack every single inning take, I mean, it was a solid 30 seconds. just to dig his foot into the trench and into the mound and just do it every inning. And they just went back and forth, back and forth. And then finally, when Jack came out of the game, he finally had some words for both the grounds crew and Zach Gallen, and then that led to some sparks flying. At one point I'm like, oh, there's no shot the benches aren't clearing. There's no way. And that was the second game of the series when Jack pitched, and then that the Diamondbacks got off to a good start in the third game of the series against Manning. So kind of diffused some things, but I think if we had jumped up to an early lead in that Sunday game, there's no telling what would have happened. That might have started a little bit of a rivalry, because and they also hit Carson Kelly, which I definitely don't think was intentional, but it didn't add very well to the whole story of things. But what were some of your favorite moments from the feud that was over the weekend?
It's so funny because Zach Gallen and Jack Flaherty were teammates in the minors for the Cardinals way back.
Good call. No.
Oddly enough, somehow the Tigers gave up Gallen and Sandy Alcantara in that deal that sent Zach Gallen to Miami. So that's big.
The
ouch.
Cardinals, you mean?
Yeah, the Cardinals.
Sorry, I think you said Tigers. I was like, wait, what? Oh, but okay,
apologies.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So that was just in my little note taking. I was like, did they ever play together? They definitely did. And I think Jack in his comments after the game was very complimentary of Gallen as well. So I think it was a lot of heat of the moment stuff, but just like the absolute middle school antics of I can't pitch on that. I mean, there's a big hole. Every single baseball player that's ever played a game has played a game on a mound and pitched on a mound where you could see the bottom of the rubber. That's how deep the trench was dug out of the front of the rubber. Let's be clear here. This is Major League Baseball. If there's a little bit of a divot, it's not gonna. Clearly, it wasn't affecting Gallen, and he ended up giving up some runs there at the end, and I'm pretty sure the grounds crew fixed the mound before that inning too. So
yeah.
Don't know that had much to do with it. I don't know. I am so here for Petty. Like it is incredible. Just Jack digging out the mound painstakingly at the beginning of every inning was just, and then I mean, I'm not one to say that confrontation is the answer, but Jack yelling from the dugout the whole next inning after he was done was just, I was like, yeah, Jack, let him know.
I love Jack. I love Jack. So to me, he could do no wrong. I think he is a special soul. I want to see him sign his long-term deal here. I don't know if it's going to ever, be warranted. I don't know if he wants to stay here, but I love what Jack brings to the table. I think he's a special guy. And obviously he's a great pitcher too, but I think the Tigers kind of need that little bit of edge on them. They need someone like him. And then lastly, I didn't put this on any takeaways or anything on our Runner show here on the document, but I wanted to highlight this point that if Scott Harris doesn't hand Tarek Skubal the largest check possible, and it can be blank, I don't care what it is, we have severely failed. Like we have failed as an organization, we have failed as a team, and we have some things to assess, because he is truly special, and he is a talent that does not come around too often, and he can be the cornerstone of the next great Tigers team. And it's starting pitching. I get it. There's going to be ups and downs or whatever, but these last 9 starts, and really it goes back to last year, so his last 12 starts, he's on a historic pace. He's starting out better than Justin Verlander started out in his MVP and Cy Young years, his year where he won both, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And so whatever the price may be, I'm so far past trading him. I've seen some rather crude comments about maybe reassess the trading him kind of scenario this year if the team continues to trend downward. I think that would be the exact wrong move, because I think if you can hover around 500 this year, it's an improvement, and that shows some tenacity and some grit from this team that really probably doesn't have the offense to really even be around 500. And so if the pitching can bring you to that point, it shows progress. And it'll be led by Tarek Skubal. And whether he wins the Cy Young or not, it really doesn't matter. I don't think I don't think anything he can do the rest of the year is gonna totally destroy or tarnish what's already been done. And he just needs to be given an extension that he deserves. And I think you also have to take advantage of someone that clearly loves Detroit. He wants to win here. He's been here. He has a chip on his shoulder because of how late he was drafted, not because, he's very happy that Tigers ended up picking him in the 9th round. But he is clearly a top level talent, and he's glad that the Tigers gave him a chance. Let's let him, actually earn it out and stuff. So I know he's your guy. I don't think I'm saying anything out of character or out of touch with what you think. But do you think there's a price where you wouldn't go with Skubal?
Here's what I'll say about the Skubal trade conversation. I don't think that there should ever be looking at this from a organizational standpoint, and we do that quite a bit on this podcast because we are a Tigers podcast. I don't think you can ever say to opposing executives, "There's nothing that you can offer us that we would even consider." I don't know if I said that correctly, but my point is that I don't think there's a priceless player in Major League Baseball. If, and this is a massive if, would never happen, but if a deal came along where the Tigers could get exponentially better offensively for a controllable amount of time, say from the Rangers offer you Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford plus for Skubal, like a 4-for-1 deal. If Scott Harris did not at least pause, I would question him as a president of baseball operations for this team. Do I think that I would do that deal? I don't think I would, and I think that probably is driven by my loyalty and my love for Skubal and what he brings to this team, and the ace mentality that he has developed this year. But I don't think he's off limits to this point, and I think that's fair. Because as a president of baseball operations, as a GM, you're trying to build a whole baseball team, not just a pitching staff, not just build one good pitcher. So I do think that the price for Tarek Skubal is unattainable by any sane, forward-thinking GM that is currently in baseball. But if an outrageous deal for multiple major league talent bats that have a lot of years of control came along, I would truly question Scott Harris if he didn't at least consider it. That's where I stand on Tarek Skubal.
I hear you. I just don't even know if it's worth thinking about it and mulling over, because there's no one that's going to offer us Elly De La Cruz. The Reds aren't going to offer us Elly De La Cruz plus, and that, really that's what it would take. You know what I mean? Or like what you said with the Rangers, I don't even think I'd take that deal. I'd need to hear the other names. I don't even think you could add a Jack Leiter to that, Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford, and me take it for what Skubal's doing. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I really do. I am so beyond thinking that teams really want to give up on good talent. We see that time and time again, and I'm so jaded by the JV trade that, I'm not necessarily saying that Al Avila and Scott Harris have the same trade acumen, but Scott hasn't pulled off a really competitive deal yet. We really only have the Soto deal to go off of, and that's kind of evaporated for the most part. I love Matt Vierling, but the rest of that trade did not go well. So I don't.
What do you mean? Nick Maton's hitting great for the Norfolk Thrashers.
Dude, there's that MLB commercial. There's that MLB commercial with Maton in it hitting that home run, and I can't stop laughing at it every time I see it. I don't know if you've seen this MLB commercial that I've seen, but
yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh, it's so cringy. So I don't necessarily know if I trust in Hinch in Harris to make the right trade and make the right call. So I'd much rather have him get an extension, the kind they worked out with Colt Keith, and see where it goes. I obviously, like, I don't want to spend 300 million on the guy, but I think you can get a pretty good deal done for south of 300 million and be very comfortable with it.
One thing
You
you
bring
do
it.
have to keep in mind
Mm,
that other people have brought up, and I think it's fair. Scooble is a Boris client.
Yep, that's what I was just gonna say. Yep,
Okay.
the whole Scott Boras client is tough to maneuver around. He historically does not make extensions. He wants his guys to hit the free agent market. Now, I do wonder if the 2024 offseason, or I guess 2023 offseason leading into the 2024 season, has changed some of his thinking a little bit because he lost clients. He legitimately lost Montgomery. He is probably on the fritz with JD Martinez. And we all know how awful the Blake Snell situation went down. So I don't necessarily think that he has the greatest shoulder up or leg up on a lot of these free agents. And so I think maybe change his mentality just a little bit. If you're offering the right deal, why not take it? Because clearly the free agent market has completely changed in the last 2 years, and it's a little bit more of the Wild West. So I think if he wants to save a client, take the $50 million home field or hometown discount, I should say, and then, make your money elsewhere. So I don't know.
Right.
We'll see. I think Scooble is so fun to watch, and we get to see him again in the Kansas City series. So we shall see. But some injury updates real quick. Reese Olson left tonight's game with a right hip contusion. Jeez, dude, that ball was scorched, and there was no way AJ was ever going to let him come or stay in the game, I should say.
That got
Again,
so
shout out to
close
Bo
to his
Bris.
arm, dude.
What did you say?
That got so close to his throwing arm.
Thankfully, it did not. Thankfully, it did not hit his arm. He didn't try to catch the ball with his right arm, so that would have been very, very bad as well. You think he's going to go on the IL, or you think this is going to be a prolonged thing, or?
So this is a tweet from, let me see, 8 minutes ago as we record here at 10:55 from Jason Beck. Reese Olson was moving around much better in the clubhouse after the game. He said Massey's liner hit him between the hip and thigh. He said he tried to continue, but his leg felt unstable during his warm-up throws, prompting the exit. So, good signs. Immediately after, clearly, we've seen too many Matt Manning situations from last year.
And more on a fleshy part of the body. So
True. Clearly, they're not really concerned about broken bones, which is a huge win. I think my opinion at this point is at the most he misses maybe a spot, a rotation start.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'll depend on how his next scheduled bullpen would be. I think that'll probably be on Wednesday or Thursday. So we'll see. I don't think he makes the IL after hearing that from Jason Beck. So
yeah, some positive news there. And then Maeda threw 3 scoreless innings, I believe, in Toledo. So he had a rehab assignment post his viral illness. Some weird, cagey messaging going on with Maeda where AJ alluded to some kind of goals that they wanted him to reach before he did the rehab assignment. I don't even know what that meant. It kind of sounded like a velo conversation. I'm reading into that totally, but I'm just like, what are we talking about here? So he did throw well. It seems like they're going to let him throw a bullpen sometime this week for the Major League Club and then see where it goes from there. My suspicion is that Manning will probably be optioned soon after that, and then they're probably going to get some kind of full bullpen arm for the interim until Kenta can make his next start, especially after how tonight went. It was basically an impromptu bullpen game, so they probably need someone in the bullpen to be able to eat some innings up the rest of the series and then into the Toronto series. So we'll see. I think Manning definitely showed that he has some more maturity and some more maturation that he has to go through. He's struggling with strikes. He is struggling to put people away, and he doesn't really always pitch with the intentionality that he needs to pitch with. And so, I think for now, while he's not throwing one hitters and double headers, I think we can safely say that he's going to be the move for Kenta coming back up. So then we have 2 more games against Kansas City. Casey and Scooble, we have a chance. We usually get run support for them, usually some competitive pitching matchups. We have a chance to win a series, Josh, even though it doesn't feel like it. Even though we're down so bad right now, we have a chance to win the series against a division rival. I cannot stand this team, dude. I cannot stand this Tigers team. They infuriate me to no end. I love them, but my gosh. And then on top of that, I just really hate the Royals too. So hopefully the Tigers can salvage something. Highlight of the series, it's got to be that Reagans versus Scooble game. It's a matinee matchup, so I won't be able to follow along live, but that's gonna be a fun game to watch. I'm really looking forward to having that one DVR'd. What about you?
I don't think that we faced Reagans in that first series, and I don't believe the Royals faced Scooble either.
Yep, exactly.
If my memory serves me well. So it should be theater. It should be hopefully something interesting. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a rough day for the lefties, for the Tigers, as Reagans is tough on lefties historically. But I'm interested to see what some extra rest does for Scooby, how that affects him with only pitching 6 pretty effortless innings in Arizona. No, it should be interesting. I still don't, and I'm not going to get into this too far at this point in the pod, but I still don't totally believe in the Royals specifically, just because I think their pitching staff is still relatively unproven, and I don't necessarily love the stuff that they're displaying.
Seth Lugo still has a sub 250 ERA. Just want to bring it up. Just want to put it out there.
Right. Their lineup doesn't scare me, and I know they put good at bats together tonight, and they have in the rest of the games against the Tigers for the most part. But really, Salvador Perez is the only guy in this lineup that truly I would want to pitch around in a lot of situations.
Yeah, you just made a lot of Kansas City fans mad.
I don't really care. I think, okay, I'm not gonna.
Bobby Witt, man. Bobby Witt. He's the next Kansas City Hall of Famer, haven't you heard?
That's coming from a guy that doesn't think that Perez is going to make the Hall of Fame. So
I think this year is definitely helping his case, for sure. But
no, we'll see. Again, 7 games in the division is not where you want to be overall, but 1 week's worth of a lead in May still is not unattainable at this point. So I think there's still a lot to be said in the division race, all told. And the Twins clearly can't win a game right now against anyone. So
Twins are very up and down. So we'll see. I would love to supplant them and at least make a statement in May. So and then we have 4 games against Toronto. Toronto is a bad baseball team. They do not have the vibes right now. Actually, Alek Manoah came back and pitched pretty well, so maybe a sign of good things to come for them. But Vladdy's not doing Vladdy things again. Most of the lineup is really not doing anything too scary, which it's full of great names. So they just don't seem to have the vibes at the moment. And they're trying to hold things together by their shoestrings. So we'll see how that series goes, but that should definitely be a win. We don't have an off day this week, so I hate off days. I think they completely ruin momentum. So if we win that game, the final game with Scooby, we give him some run support and then go right into the Toronto series. We get to see more Motor City this weekend, Friday. Well, I guess I should say Friday night, because they're gonna start wearing Motor City Connects every Friday home game. So we get to have that vibe going. That's gonna be big. Love that. And I think we're gonna. I truly think we're gonna only win 1 game of the Kansas City series. That's going to be the Scooble game. And then I hope we win 3 games against the 4-game set against Toronto. So I guess that means I think we're going to win 4 games. I'm forever an optimist.
Still a winning week.
Exactly. Forever an optimist. Where do you think we're going to be?
We're going 5-2 this week, and we're going to send Alec Manoah back to single A.
And it seems to be the place for him. It seems to be the instructional league seems to be calling his name. So, all right. I like the optimism. I love it. I thought I was being overly optimistic, but here we are. So, Josh, where can the kids find us?
We are on all of your socials at the Old English D Pod. Give us a follow, give us a like. A lot of people have started to pick up the follows recently, so we appreciate you guys. I try to keep updated on the pod as much as possible, especially over on Twitter. I also tweet about the Tigers pretty often from my personal account as well. So if you want to follow either one of us, Casey doesn't like to advertise his Twitter presence too much. I respect that.
I hate social media. I just hate it with a passion.
It's so fair, and it's such a toxic place to be, but sometimes you just gotta go at it. Sometimes you just gotta go after some folks, you know?
I appreciate the heck out of you for carrying me on that front, because you do a lot of the legwork there, so I very much appreciate it. One of these days, one of these days I'll step in there and I'll ruin our fan base with my terrible takes. How's that sound?
We do it enough here for the both of us, right?
True. Josh, as always, thank you so much for joining me. Guys, thank you so much for listening. And as always, go Tigers.